afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Black Robe podcast. It's your girl, Anzhane Slaughter, here with my lovely co-host and some more lovely co-hosts for today. Let's just start with a round of introductions. Carol, can you kick us off, Miss Founder?
I would be happy to. First of all, hello, Anzhane, with your beautiful self. For people who are listening to the audio portion of our presentation today, Anzhane is rocking her Whitney Houston,
yes,
Donna Summer look with the beautiful big hair. I love it. You have
yes.
and next to her is the beautiful Ashley Albert, who is a person with lived experience and a peer bridger project manager with iKinnect. We'll be talking about a very special kind of app that has a healing impact on young adults and their families, and we're going to tell you why in just a moment. And with her is Daniela Mendez Faria, who is a research operations manager for iKinnect and a peer support specialist. Welcome, Daniela. And also finally, Cindy Schaefer, associate professor with the University of Maryland, who is one of the developers of iKinnect. So welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
When I first was approached about this project that you're working on, the first question in my mind was, what in the world does an app have to do with suicide prevention and mental health and wellness in young people? So who would like to start? Maybe Cindy, can you give us kind of a broad idea of the origins of this project, the origins of the app, and what it's intended to do?
Sure. That's a great question. I want to say first that lots of folks are turning to apps and websites and YouTube videos to try to improve their mental health or to learn how to interact with other people. So one way I think about this is we're trying to make sure there's some quality products available that are evidence-based and are likely to be truly helpful to people and not kind of, you know how the web is, like lots of things may not be of high quality. So I can tell you the origin. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I have worked primarily with juvenile offender populations, kids involved in and young adults involved in the juvenile justice system for my whole career, really. And in that work, we were doing lots of family-based interventions, which have proven to be more effective than individual work in terms of preventing those kind of problems from happening again. They call it recidivism, right? When right. Kids who've been arrested get arrested again. And about 7 or 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to begin to think about the role that technology might play in supporting some of the family-based work we were doing, you know, kind of in person. And with some funding from the National Institute of Mental Health, myself and my colleague, Linda DeMeff, were able to build this thing called iKinnect and do some testing with it. So we'll tell you more about that tonight and drill down on sort of what the components are and why we think it's helping.
Well, can we talk for just a moment? I don't know how much our audience knows about the incidences of suicide, the impact of mental health on youth and young adults, and especially in our own county. You know, we've been hearing, I sit on the Kids Mental Health Steering Committee, along with a number of others around the county, and the incidences of increases in suicide among youth and young adults is staggering, and particularly those youth and young adults who might be in households where there is domestic violence. Maybe there's some history of mental illness, misdiagnosed, not diagnosed illness, and poverty. And so it's a recipe for tragedy. The pandemic has not helped one bit, right? Because young people are isolated, are not getting to school, don't get access to the resources that school sometimes makes available to them. There are no other eyes on them, right? Young children who would be seen by school officials or coaches or at their churches. Now they're not in those spaces. And so it's not readily noticeable to adults outside of their household that something might be wrong. So I just wonder, either Cindy, Daniela, or maybe even Ashley, from your personal experience, if you want to speak to why it's really important for you to be doing this kind of work for this particular demographic.
Sure, I'll just share some alarming facts about that. So as you were saying, the suicide rate has been really off the charts for a while for all youth. And it turns out we've known for a while that youth, and when I say youth, kind of like teenagers, 13 and up, those youth through young adulthood who are involved in the criminal justice system are actually, even before the pandemic, they were 2 to 10 times more likely to engage in suicidal behavior than just the average kid kind of out there, in part because being involved in that system is the culmination of those environmental circumstances that you were describing. I mean, those are the kids that have the most environmental stress, the most racial discrimination, the most traumas in their lives. So it makes sense that their rates would be higher. And what we found out in parallel is that the suicide rate for, in particular, Black youth has been like twice as much as for kids in general. Again, they're experiencing the bulk of the stressors in our society. So when you put those two together, Black youth in juvenile justice are among the riskiest group in the world, really in the country, for engaging in a suicidal behavior or having a successful suicide. So that's why we have decided to focus in particular for the latest version of our app on that population.
Yeah. Can you guys, for our viewers that have no idea what iKinnect is, Ashley or Daniela, want to tell us how does this app work?
Yes, definitely. Hi, everyone. So we have some already existing features that we're bringing back from iKinnect 1.0 to iKinnect 2.0. And we have new features too that will involve the suicide prevention part of the app. So among those existing features, we have, for example, a section for stories with people with lived experience. With suicide and with these sort of behaviors that lead to legal issues. So we have people with lived experience talking about their struggle, how they struggled with it when they were struggling, and how they were able to overcome those sort of struggles and what they do now to stay well. And this provides a level of inspiration for youth and people that are going currently through these kind of situations. We also, which takes me to the second point or existing feature, which is dialectical behavioral therapy skills. So we have a section for DBT skills that have been proven to be very effective in allowing us to control very strong emotions and cope with situations more effectively moving forward. So on the app, we have this feature, and those DBT skills are being taught by youth ambassadors and also by adults who are experienced with DBT in the way that they were able to overcome the issues that they were struggling with. So we also, for caregivers, for example, in youth, they will be able to get to learn these skills over time, practice skills, and also seek coaching from the app based on these skills. So I say caregiver because there's another feature for parents or other caregivers to help and support their youth who are struggling with suicide and trying to stay out or get out of juvenile justice. So this means that the app will have a component, right? It's not only for the youth, but it's also for the parent to be able to support their youth in this sort of transition and struggle. So that's a feature that's very unique. And in helping these the caregivers, which is parents or legal guardians, to support their youth, we have things like helping young people structure their time. So having support their parents, helping young people structure their time to avoid people, places, and things that aren't good for them and that will lead them to get arrested. also engaging instead of with these places and people that might get them into trouble, instead, engaging with positive people, places, and things such as jobs, schooling, young people who are actually doing well. And also for the parent to be able to acknowledge the efforts of the youth and providing encouragement. So it's a pair mobile app that will help in this sort of way. So one of the new features will be this, like I said, the suicide prevention piece of it. And we'll have the ability of building a crisis safety plan for the youth, which is, it can be for both, acute distress and also more low-level distress. For example, who can I call to help me calm down? And also we will be able to help them go through a lethal means counseling for them to be able to stay safe in those very strong and hot moments of emotions. So one of the key caregiver features for the part of suicide prevention is to help create and monitor a young person's safety plan to keep them from hurting themselves when they are struggling. And the way that this all comes together, all these different features, and a quick example of how that will work is, for example, as part of the daily use, users will be asked several times throughout the day about how they're feeling. And they will rate these using face emojis, for example, for primary emotions such as happy, sad, scared, shame, mad, and also neutral emotions. They will then use a thermometer to guide to indicate the intensity of that emotion, which will help them. This will notify the system what emotions they are currently struggling with, and what skills to offer for coaching, depending on that emotion that they're struggling with in that particular situation.
So it's an emotion, there's an algorithm or something that it triggers the set of the array of recommended supports that person needs based on the emotion that they register?
So they're going to be assessed for that emotion. So let's say, hey, Carol, how are you feeling today? And let's say Carol uses a sad emoji, right? So the app will be able to, based on that input, provide Carol with skills that are targeted to when we feel sad, right? So and seek coaching from the app for that particular emotion. So there's always going to be an input from the user. I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel shame, and based on that, the app will respond to, well, where can I take you on the app? If you're feeling that particular way, this skill is very good for that emotion. So that's how it will work on that matter.
Well, I know Ashley has some actual experience with the app. So Ashley, do you want to share a little bit about your story and how you come to this as a person with lived experience, and also you'll be working to sort of bridge the gaps between the users and the technology. So tell us about your story.
Yeah, so let me take my glasses off. Yeah, I'm Ashley Albert. I grew up right in King County, right in the South End, the Rainier Beach, Rainier Valley area of Seattle, Washington. I was exposed to parents, having substance use issues. I was removed from my mom when I was 9 years old, but even before then, when, kind of like my emotional things started to kick in, was when my father died when I was 6 months old. And from that state, I grew up and I had this anger, right? I had this anger being separated from my mom. All of these things were happening to me, within me. I didn't really know how to articulate them. I didn't really know the difference between emotions. I didn't even have anyone really asking me, what was going on with me. Everyone pretty much told me that I was, a difficult person, right? Like I was too hard to handle. Coming up, in that kind of community where there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of segregation from like gangs, right? Because that was a coping mechanism for me, was to kind of go into that kind of lifestyle to protect me from the things that were happening when I was not even just at home, but in, familial places, right? And so this app is so cool, right? Because having that anger, I also had, displayed domestic violence to my mom, but also I was a victim of domestic violence, right? And so like somewhere in between, being the victim and then being the perpetrator, like that thing happens. And I became the aggressor and I got locked up. And when I got locked up, I'll never forget that they had told me that if I continued to cry or I felt suicidal, that they were going to put me in the hole, right? I didn't even know what like getting that type of like feedback from an adult in a facility when you're away from home. Like, I didn't even know why I was suicidal at that point. A lot of my emotional things happened to me when I was 6 months old, separated from my father. Like I sleepwalk, right? I had night terrors. Like the impact that that trauma had on me, and how it impacted my grandmother, right? How like she was left to not have resources, and fear of having me being removed from her and put in institutions when really we just needed help, right? So having that type of feedback won't allow someone to open up, and it kind of like reiterates what you're learning at home about systems. They're not here to help you. They're not for you. They don't want to, they're going to take you away. They're going to lock you up, right? Mm-hmm. Well, with the iKinnect app, this is so cool, is that you have people that actually care. They do hear you, right? They know that you're complex. You're not difficult. You're complex, right? There's different parts, there's different like assessments that add up to make it to why you are the way you are. Environment, religion, ethnic background, social economic, background, like all of these different things that children don't know about, right? So this app allows them to finally have a place to reclaim their power while living in a world that is trying to take it from them. You have people with lived experience, myself, sharing, my story, my face, my name, about what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. It's not okay for, anybody to feel suicidal. And when we have youth who are not being supported, but being surveilled when they really need to be walked through this whole complex system, from mental health to criminal justice system to foster care, right? We have these young people who are just trying to figure it out. This app is going to allow them for the first time to be able to connect with someone who actually listens to them and understands, right? Suicide experts, dialectical behavioral therapy experts. And by the way, I am a recipient of DBT services. And I want to say that I am a suicide attempt survivor, that had it not been for DBT and people like, Linda Dimip and iKinnect and Cindy Schaefer and just all of these people, even you all, right? Having this podcast, like I wouldn't be here today, right? So this is the year where we're reclaiming our power, right? We're reclaiming our power. We're reclaiming our names, our identity, our sexual identity, our orientation, all of that, because these youth deserve it, right? But they need to be able to kind of like navigate through those emotions in a safe place. So introducing this app to kind of have them be able to support them and the parent, right? Because we also have these parents and guardians that are afraid to reach out for help because they don't want to have their kids removed, nor do they want to be punished for not knowing the resources to give them, right? So this app is going to help everyone, right? It's a family app. It's going to support the person that is dealing with suicide or complex behaviors, right? And it's also going to be a resource to parents and guardians that felt like no one was in their corner and supporting them. So we just want to let you know, whoever's listening, that we hear you, we see you, and we're coming for you. So just get ready.
Yes.
iKinnect 2 is in the building.
Okay. I know
Ashley,
right.
Albert.
Yes, Ashley, your story is so strong. Do not stop. Like, please don't stop telling your story, because I know there's a million ears out there that need to hear it. I mean, there's so much empowerment and uplift and encouragement in your story. I really thank you for being so raw and authentic with us and sharing this space with that inner, with your energy. I have two questions. So, one, are these like what is the response time? Are these all pre-recorded videos of people that have lived experience, or can people that are using the app actually connect with individuals? And then I think people want to know if this is a free app or not. Or can people download it, or how do they go about doing that?
If let me answer to the people, because I think it was Daniela that talked about the youth ambassador part, and then I'll just want to hone in on that. I'm project manager of that as well, where we're taking youth who also are recipients of the DBT therapy, that know how to use the skills and that are continuing to utilize these skills, where they get to, there's a diverse group of them. They're going to be on the app teaching these skills to their peers. And we named them youth ambassadors because they've earned that name, and they beat suicide and complex, unhealthy behaviors too.
Right.
So yes, those are going to be some of the few people we have on that app, representing all different backgrounds, all different faces, all different sexual orientations.
So TIP, TIP is one of my favorite skills. It is part of the distress tolerance module, and it is so, all of it's grounded in science, of course, it's therapy, but there's such clear-cut reasons that TIP works, which I love. So TIP stands for temperature, intense exercise, and paced breathing. So TIP is something you use in moments of really, really high stress, high emotion situations. And again, distress tolerance it's important that you use distress tolerance in the moment. And it's also important that you remember that distress tolerance isn't a long-term solution. So TIP is short acting, very quick, very effective, and you need to remember to return later to the emotions and acknowledge them. So for TIP, the first one, temperature. So what you do for TIP for temperature, you basically go to a really cold state. So you can splash cold water on your face. I really like holding ice cubes right here, and then holding my breath and bending down. So the science behind that is that we have our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is what happens when you're really stressed, when you see a bear. It's the fight of the fight or flight.
Last year, I was going through a lot of cyberbullying, and one night I just felt really alone and really helpless, and all I could think about was suicide. But there was also a big part of me that wanted to keep fighting towards a life worth living. And so I started with doing a lot of skills to ground myself and just keep myself in that moment. And then I started working on some tip skills. I used a lot of skills with temperature. Like I held ice, I took a cold shower, just everything I could to keep myself connected with my body and just present in that moment. And when I felt ready, I reached out to someone I trusted, and we talked a little bit about what was going on. And then for the rest of it, we just talked about other things to help bring my mood up. And just for the rest of the night, I kept focusing on my breathing. I kept trying to stay distracted, and just kept using skills to be able to make it to the next day.
Cindy, did you or Daniela want to dive in on, I know right now you're testing this app and you need to recruit some people to help prove your concepts, right? So which one of you would like to talk a little bit about that piece?
Yes, so thank you so much for asking that. And something that Anzhane was asking about the feedback that we've gotten from the app, and we are on an ongoing recruiting process where we ask participants to meet criteria to give us feedback on the components that we have ready for the app, let's say. So we interview them and we show them the content that we have ready, and then they provide that feedback. And based on that feedback, it's how that it's what's helping us build such a strong and meaningful app. And a few of the comments that they have said of the feedback on their interview, we always ask at the end, what is something that you like them, what is what you like the most about the app? And I've heard people say, for example, the idea of the app, it will turn around some lives that need to be turned around. How powerful is that of a feedback, right? We also have someone saying, that what they liked the most was the challenge of the day, because we also have a challenge of the day. And they added that little steps add up to something much greater. And to begin working on yourself, you need to do little things every day. So those are a couple of the feedback that we've gotten. And there's one of them that particularly made my heart feel so warm. And this was during a focus group at a youth camp where we were showing this content to several youth to get their feedback. And we showed them a video of a story of a person with lived experience with both juvenile justice and suicide.
Ever since I was little, I was suicidal. All because how people used to pick on me when I was a kid. So I never told nobody. I always hold it in. But, I hold it in because where I'm from in St. Louis, if we tell anybody down there we suicidal, they try to put us in one of the mental home. And so I got in trouble in the streets, and I told people that, like, the head nurse and stuff in jail, I'm suicidal. They put me like in a green vest called a turtle and put me in a room with, a mat, no cover or nothing, and the room be cold. So it was very hard, but only thing I wanted some attention and love, but I ain't never had, because when I was little, my mama was never around me. I only had my grandma and my dad and my other two siblings growing up, and we always thought we was the problem, and that's the reason my mama left us. But when I got older and lost my brothers, I really lost it. I ain't had nobody to talk to. Well, I found out I've been walking late at night by myself. Just didn't want to live no more because I lost my loved one, and I love my brother to death.
And their room became like completely quiet. And then this young man said, that's my story. I never knew why I always do the crazy things I do, but that's why. So these kind of comments and feedback to me are a reminder, if I ever need one, of that what we're working on is so meaningful, and it's literally gonna save lives, and it's gonna, at the end of the day, right, who's the future, right? It's these young people that more often than not get in trouble, right? And this, what we're doing right now, it's gonna help bridge a lot of the gaps that are going through the system where people fall through the cracks, right? So our aim, and something that I'm completely committed to in a personal level, is to bridge gaps where youth and older people can get access to this kind of digital interventions by the hand of their caregivers to cope and with situations and more effectively than they've done before.
I love how you brought in access to this conversation, because I think there's a stigma that's floating out there, especially in the Black community. People don't like to go to therapy. I mean, it's now becoming a conversation topic where we're talking about mental health, but this is very new within the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, not a lot of people, they just went to the church, in the Black household, and then the church had its own flaws. So when we talk about access, I mean, what is it by making putting it into an app, something that's almost confidential. You don't have to talk to anybody about. I mean, Ashley, did that help you? I mean, or just do you think that it would help other people because they don't have to announce that they're feeling, maybe mistreated in their households or, personal life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a way to turn for help, and not only turn to help, but have someone relatable that you can see on that app, and also have other different access needs built in to be that you're able to take and utilize.
Yeah.
Like youth are not, I think the whole thing is that the big thing for me is that DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is something that it's an expensive therapy, but it is something that is so needed in the Black community. The reason why is because there's so much, intergenerational oppression and just,
Trauma.
trauma and just all kinds of things, right? And our parents and grandparents and parents, not everybody in the Black community, right? But the majority did not have the ability to learn how to navigate through, hard emotions. And so they learn and do behaviors that wind them up in systems that were already built to put us away in the first place. So what we want to do with this app is help you be able to navigate your emotions a little bit better so you can think rationally or a little bit logically and make a healthy decision.
I love that. And you are a phenomenal spokesperson for the app. I do, maybe Cindy, you can tell us in these, we've got maybe 10 minutes more or so. When is it going to be available? I mean, what status is it in right now? And when will it be available and to whom?
Yeah, so we're building. We're excited. The version 1 is about to be used in a preventative context in Maryland. It's going to be provided. Our state that's where I live, and our state has decided to invest in making this app available to any family who wants it. We're going to make it easy and accessible for them to find it and download it. And we hope that that'll prevent involvement in the juvenile justice system from the get-go. And certainly once the suicide features come in, preventing self-harm and suicide. In Washington State, and I think I don't know if we're statewide or just in Seattle. I think we're statewide. We will be providing the iKinnect app to juvenile offender population. So it's a more narrow focus. And I think my colleagues in Washington know a little bit more about that. And from here, we keep going. It's a possibility that Washington State would want to provide it more preventatively across the board, not just for juvenile justice populations. We're letting other states know about this. And, we have a lot of therapist shortages right now. It's like a very difficult time, even if you are open to having mental health treatment, finding somebody doesn't have wait lists and things like that. The great resignation, right? Like that's hitting the mental health community pretty hard. So we think that the momentum around this will build and we can make it more widely available to fill some of those gaps with even having therapists available if you wanted that approach.
Okay, so you're going to start with juvenile justice. So maybe in Pierce County, for example,
right.
That would mean the juvenile court, Raymond Hall, individuals that are either in detention or maybe on probation for some sort of juvenile offense.
Can I jump in for that? So what that looks like is that it's a pilot project that's going to start off in King County and Pierce County. So we're going to be visiting youth all throughout the facilities in Washington, but the youth that will be released to those particular counties is where the project is going to be piloted out of. So those there's like for instance the Jasper Health where Daniela and I are at, where we're doing the Peer Bridger contract. We are going to be connecting with those youth coming right out of like Nate Sale or Green Hill, right back into King County, and then just kind of making sure that whatever it is they need to do in the community after serving long-term sentences, that however long they've been in there, that they're really able to come back into the community and have that peer bridger support, you know, that hand-to-hand experience, so that they're not slipping through the cracks and then back up into the system again.
So JRA, so when you're talking about youth, you're really talking even about young adults all the way up to say 25.
Yes.
Okay, coming out of
25, yes.
Green Hill.
Nacelle, Green Hill, Echo Glen, or even Raymond Hall. Though that is your first, your pilot's going to start with them. And then what kind of data are you trying to collect from that group that might allow the rest of the world, those of us who maybe aren't connected to juvenile justice, how might young adults access the app at some point in the future? Is that possible? Is that likely?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that, Carol. So like Ashley was saying, we are partnering with DCYF here in Washington State to implement the peer bridging program. And at the same time, the population, or like you're saying, what data are we gathering? They will also help us with the feedback that we're needing to keep developing this app. Since the young people that we're going to be providing services to through DCYF are going to meet that criteria of the data or the feedback that we need, which brings me back to the recruiting part. I know you asked that a few minutes ago. I go so carried away with the feedback we've gotten that I completely forgot to kind of like tell a little bit more about the recruitment process. And yes, we're still, like I said, we are on an ongoing recruiting process, and we need lots of feedback from people that meet the criteria of the target population that we are aiming for. And I believe Tia will be able to put on the screen at some point what that criteria is and how to reach us. So if you think that you meet that criteria and you would like to participate and you would like to give us feedback, we would love for you to reach out, because we believe that your feedback is going to be very valuable for us to continue building this amazing app that will in the future and now already it's going to help the youth that we're aiming to help during this process. So please reach out to us if you feel like you want to participate, and then we can go ahead and show you the next steps of that.
I love that. It kind of reminds, I mean, it brings me to our biggest event that's happening this year with the IBJ, our Freedom Summer Symposium. This is exciting. This is our second annual. It's our biggest leadership effort that we do every year. It's catered to 18 to 35-year-olds. And this year we're kind of working on a theme around updating the blueprint to Black excellence. And this mental health, we have to resist through mental health. We have to resist and persist, right? Through these trauma engaging, activities, something that's going to bring us more access to continue to do our fights. I don't know if there's a way maybe iKinnect can partner with IBJ. We're bringing out people. If you guys want to test your product on our young adults, I think this is something awesome. Carol, what do you think? Should we?
I love everything you come up with. So I love that idea.
That was a surprise. I just kind of threw that out there. Carol, I had no idea.
It looks like just today we had a conversation with our friends out at Pacific Lutheran University, and we're going to see if we can seal the deal and maybe be on the Pacific Lutheran University campus for our symposium that's coming up May 19, 20. So maybe we can make sure that Tia, Anjane, Ashley, Cindy, Daniela, we circle back with you and see how we might be able to carry this theme forward and help make sure you get plenty of young people involved in the testing. So Anjane, you better wrap it up for us because time is pretty much up for tonight.
Yeah. It's time for you to go to bed, huh, Carol? Bedtime.
Almost past my bedtime.
Almost. No, I had such a great conversation. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time. We really appreciate your stories and your efforts that you guys are doing to curb suicide, in our communities. It's and just really promote mental health in a healthy fashion and an accessible fashion to those who are most marginalized and really need it. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us on the Black Robe podcast. Thank you everybody at home for watching. Tune in to us next week and we'll see you then. Peace out. Bye.
Bye.